Patience. My son had to board a bus to reach for his coaching, which was scheduled to start at 11:30. I told him that I could drop him off at the bus stand at 10:45. At the same moment, my wife came in with some tea for me, and I told my son that I would finish my tea in 5 minutes and would drop him off. After that, my son felt that he would miss his bus due to my delay, and infuriated by it, he started walking towards the bus stop. I finished my tea, pulled out my car, and reached the bus stop, but my son hadn't reached it. Similarly, there was another incident in which I was awaiting my turn at the barber shop. I was among the 12 people who awaited their turn. Suddenly, two boys rushed in to get their hair trimmed, and seeing the long queue, they were taken aback and left the shop. Ironically, they returned to the shop after 15 minutes. I went up to speak to them, and they told me that they had been to the barber shop, which was less crowded and only 4 people were awaiting their turn. But it would take at least 1.5 hours before they could get any trimming done, as there was only one barber who was attending to the customer. In the shop in which we were now, there were 8 barbers, which the boy had formerly missed. Undoubtedly, the turn would arrive sooner than was accepted in the other shop. You must be wondering about the reason why I narrated this incident to you. The only reason in both cases was lack of patience. People who are not patient are forever running from pillar to post. Patience is the way of nature. It is only in the season of summer that mangoes ripen. The different flowers bloom according to their respective seasons. When the weather and conditions are in their favor, it is only in the fixed season that the crops can be sowed and harvested. Now, if we try to be impatient, not only would we destroy the fruit that awaits us in the future, but we also delay our own work. People who exercise patience have the ability to wait for the right moment, and people who wait know exactly when to strike, and as a result, when they strike, it is hard for them to miss. It is only after repeated failures that a person succeeds, and if he does not have the patience to wait for his success, he is forever a failure. Throughout his life, here I would like to remind you of the word uttered by the great social reformers Martin Luther King. He said, even if I am told that the world would come to an end tomorrow, I would still be planting trees. It was just the result of such patience and belief in the work that he did that made him such a great man. Exercising patience is mandatory if you want to succeed. In the field of academics, you need to be patient with yourself. When you study, there may be many instances when you would feel I like studying this book without clearly understanding the concept of what you have read. But in these cases, you need to resist these temptations while starting a new chapter, which seems to be tough. You may feel lethargic, but this is the point where you need to get hold of yourself and try finding reason as to why learning the particular chapter may be helpful. Once you have realized the importance of exercising patience while studying, the way you study would become much more effective. Cooperation. Another ingredient of success and instrument to effectively exercise the mechanism of time management is cooperation. The more we cooperate with the people around us, the more we expand our resources, the more we are able to mold ourselves according to the circumstances, the more we are able to turn them to our favor. What we need to understand here is that cooperation is a means of saving one's time and energy, and not a means to kill the same. Cooperation should always be used for mutual benefits. Cooperation is not just agreeing to whatever the person is saying, but through the exercise of diplomacy, working in such a way that would benefit you as well as him. The more we cooperate, the more resources we become. The reason I am discussing all these things with you is that I have personally seen students creating as many ill wishers as they win our friends. While winning our friends is a very nice thing to do, creating ill wishers is not wise. I do understand that it is impossible to share the same frequency that you share with only a few friends with everyone. But what I could personally advise is that if we cannot win our friends on the other side, it is a wiser to be neutral than create opposition. Doing so would not only save a lot of your time and energy, but also increase your popularity by a vast margin. If we exercise humility where required, tolerance where required, and patience and the ability of coordination where required, it would be far from tough to do so. Being attentive. By being alert and being attentive, I do not mean it is in a physical term. What I do mean is mental attentiveness. Most of the times we are physically alert, but our mind dreams on. The result is that we are not able to do justice to the work at hand. Our efficiency reduces and we take more time than we naturally would to complete a piece of work. Often it happens that in a class of 45 minutes, a student is only attentive for the first 15 minutes and then his mind dozes off. Being alert when required is major quality that we all must work towards attaining. Whatever works you may be engrossed in, always try to remind yourself about the work that you are doing. If we do this, our mind stops wandering and fixes itself in the task at hand. Taking the initiative. Usually, all of us are forever occupied in some work or the other. You might have noticed that if you study throughout the year, then completing the course in time is no big deal. It is advisable that you will finish little portions of our work every day instead of dragging into the entire load up till the last moment. But you might have noticed at times a month or so period to the examination, the intensity with which you work increases by vast margin. All you can think of is studying. As a result, you work like you have never worked through the entire year. And finish huge chunks of your work is almost half the times. Not only this, you do it much more thoroughly than you ever have before. Through the true pleasure of working is by working diligently at a moderate and steady pace throughout the year. But when it comes to working with intensity such as this, it is different story altogether, which has different thrill and an added element of excitement of it as the goal is clearly in sight. We all work in the fashion a month or two period to the examination. As it inches closer, we increase the intensity with which we work. What would happen if we try to gain the same intensity and momentum 3 months before the examination instead of 1 or 2 months before it? Care to try it out. If you do not feel the thrill of it, and if your marks do not going soaring high, you are free to write back to me on my mailings address condemning my theory. What I am asking you to do is based upon my experiences, that experiment that I have conducted at the observation that I have made as a student. I have written many books on movies. It is evident that I have read a lot about them too. But I don't feel that I did justice to the available literature pertaining to movies. Due to this, I was often distributed. Coincidentally, I was able to get admission to the Film and Television Institute of India, which was to conduct a course on film appreciation for 27 days. We used to start studying at 9 in the morning, and apart from our meals, we never took any time of till 11 in the night. This schedule carried on for 27 days. Believe me, my friend, that the moment I learned about movies in this 27 days, I hadn't learned in the last 27 years of my life. Do not misinterrupt what I am saying by thinking that instead of doing little portion of the work every day, we should finish it off in one go. If you reach this conclusion as a result of the above discussion, then I regret that I haven't been able to convey my point to you. What I mean to say is that while being focused on scoring the singles, do not miss an opportunity to hit a six. Make fixed plans for a week or 15 days in which allow yourself to be involved in your work as you would like to be without caring for anything else. Oppose yourself when required. We often love ourselves so much that we are not even able to think about standing against our own wishes. This phenomenon makes us so stubborn and full of inertia that we completely destroy any scope of our evolution. We also manage to collect a big bag full of excuses to justify our obstinacy. If a person is physically or mentally challenged, then he naturally has a fantastic excuse to justify his inability. But ironically, what I have seen is that the people who have understood the importance of their time and meaning of their life, despite of physical and mental challenges, have proved themselves in every sphere of life. Let me now tell you a few stories regarding such people. Former President of the United States Franklin Roosevelt was a victim of polio, and so was the famous bowler from the Indian team, Chandrasekhar. Helen Keller was ridden by the wheelchair throughout her life. Subhash Chandra went to become a successful dancer even after losing her legs. The great physicist Stephen Hawking, who was considered to be a reincarnation of Einstein, could not be confirmed by his wheelchair. He notes, "My body may be stuck in this wheelchair, but with the internet my mind go to the end of the universe." If you really want to get rid of the obstacles which hinders your progress, then nothing in the world can stop you from doing so. But to do so much things of more often than not, you would have to stand against your own whims and be a bit harsh on yourself. Find solution to your problem. Can you tell me the name of one man, be it Christ, Prophet Muhammad, Buddha, Mahavira, or Lord Krishna, who hasn't faced obstacle in his life? The great musician Beethoven, whose music was spellbinding on the listener, had only two lives in his life, which were misery and music. If you were happens to read the story of the Queen of Holkar Ahilbai, you would feel as if the woman was born to wither pain. The famous singer Jagjit Singh, after losing his son, continued his career in singing despite the great loss. Always remember that it is the time of great stress, great misery, and great challenges that your courage needs to be held up. The only test of how brave you are is how much you can stand without being unrubbed, and courage is not a thing that can be developed by reading books or listening to people speak. It is something which can only be developed if you face the challenges head on. What would we do if misery strikes up? To elaborate this, I would take an example from the life of the former President of India, Dr. Kalam. In his own word, after 3 days in his family in 3 consecutive years, I had to be devoted to my work more than ever before. All the abilities that I had in me, I put in the constructions of the satellite launch vehicle. For me, the SLV becomes a mission which was ordained by God unto me. During this time, all the other activities which were conducted in my daily life were curbed so that I may better focus on my work. I don't feel that there is a better way to tackle misery as was done by Dr. Kalam. If we have to realize this at some point or the other, that when happiness is never to stay, then how can anybody's life be devoted by misery? Misery is universal truth from which nobody is spared. Therefore, it would be wise to take in it our stride. This belief helps us to formulate our convictions which always seems us through our tough time. The saying of Buddhist monk in the Himalayas is very relevant in the case. Do not be upset as the snow falls. As the snow falls, the sun would forever simmer to keep you warm. What we would to do is consider the time of misery as the taste of the tempest and look upon it is an opportunity to prove ourselves. It is always a rough sea, which makes a skillful sailor. When the Wright brothers were ready to test their first power flight, bad weather it set in. There was rain or snow for several days, but while being delayed by the weather, the ride were not ideal. During this time, they occupied themselves in a making test of the strength of the wings and engine. During the test of the engine, they discovered that one of the tubular shaft had developed as a flaw and cracked. This incident proved to be a blessing in disguise, as later when it helped them to improve their engine. It took Edison a lot of time and money on one of his inventions. Finally, he gave up and told his co-workers in the morning, "It's all right." So we lost a lot of money on this project, but isn't fun to even lose money on such an invention. It is with this spirit alone that we can tackle the obstacles at work and emerge supreme out of the unfavorable circumstances. According to one of the most hilarious and wise saying, if we have fallen into a pool of dirty water, what do we have to lose of by sounding may the Ganga's glaciers? If life throws lemons at you, then why not make a lemonade? If a rat has fallen on your path, then why not use to find somebody's lost cat? Being flexible. I have seen many people never compromising with their beliefs and their habits. When I was a slave to my habits, I felt a lot of discomfort. For example, I was into a habit of always taking a bath before my meals, and whenever and due to whatever reasons it wasn't possible to do so, it always caused me to suffer from a splitting headache. I would abstain from going to any tour which would cause me such discomfort, no matter how important to the tour was for me. But when I purposely started making my habits flexible, I improved a lot in every way, and my mind would be free of the stresses which I developed due to nonsensical habits of mine. If you have also such habits which have no reason or no scientific explanation behind them, it would be advisable to get rid of them as soon as possible. These habits are not helping you in any way, but are talking your time and wasting your energy. We would utilize our time as per the requirements of the situations. Always keeps a diary. I know that the most students would not keep a diary in their pockets up till the time it does not become mandatory for them to do from the point of view of their profession. Keeping a small diary in your pocket would forever comes to your assistance. The diary works as your personal assistant. You may jot down the works in your diary. You may even pre-plan and set your mind free of the anxiety and the necessity of retaining the information. You can use your diary to pin down any idea which comes to your mind or an important task that you are supposed to do, and then forget completely about it for the time being. If you get a brain wave and fail to pin it down, your diary then changes there, the entire idea would be lost. The great comedian Charlie Chaplin always kept a tape recorder within himself. Whenever an idea struck his mind, he would record it in his instrument, which later on he would use in his films. Do you know that if the great musician P.T. Pradeep hadn't written down the lyrics of his song on a piece of paper that was going to him a cigarette vendor at 10 o'clock in the night, then he wouldn't have composed the famous patriotic song which was sung by Lata Mangeshkar and is still sung on every Independence and Republic Day. What I believe is that if he had a habit of carrying a small diary in his pocket, then our music industry would have been enriched by such songs. This is the reason why I emphasize upon always keeping a small diary in your pocket whenever you go. Stay in the company of people with conviction. In the same way in which misery propagates itself, happiness and prosperity always propagates itself. In the same way in which seeing a person yawning would also make you want to yawn. Seeing a person and being in company of a person who is focused and full of convictions and vitality would fill you with convictions and vitality. I am about to discuss with you an experiment which you may try out yourself. This experiment was first conducted by the psychologist Jung. He hung two clocks side by side on a wall. One clock was slower than the other clock. After a few days, it was noticed that the clock which was slower had turned in with the clock which showed the right time. It is also true that the farthest a planet is from the sun, which is the source of energy, the lesser its speed of revolution is. This is the reason why I always recommend that you would stay with people who inspire you and are inspired and motivated themselves. When a friend who genuinely cares about his and your success would take you by the arm and urge you to carry a moving ahead, the journey would undoubtedly be made easier. It is very important that you do not advice from which you are unsure about themselves or spend time with people who lack conviction. Doing this would only limit your progress. People who haven't seen the light of the sun would surely woo at the light of candle, and it would be forever in your interest to stay away from such people. Recognizing the opportunity. Every opportunity which has been violent in way is great chance to prove yourself. Recognizing an opportunity to and utilizing it to fullest and not doing so is maybe difference between success and failure. You might complain that such an opportunity have never come in your way, but if you stay so in the context of your entire life, then I would certainly not believe you. There is a very possibility that opportunity that come your way went unnoticed and unheeded. All of experience of a few circumstances in our life which have the potential of changing our lives forever. But it keeps to us. If we are susceptible to change or no, I believe that if there is a station, then the train would also halt. It is also necessary that we notice the train to be present while the train is in station, but the train halts nevertheless. Amitabh Bachchan went to All India Radio for this audition where he has rejected because his voice was not up to the mark. Through this incident was unfavorable to him that time. Later the entire world would praise him for very voice for which he was rejected. He went on to become one of the greatest actors in Indian history. While when started acting, he was made fun of by his fellow actors. On being thrown on the platform of the station from the first class compartment, Mahatma Gandhi made up his mind that he would throw the Englishman out of and through these examples, I want to tell you that no opportunity comes with a flag or a marker attached to it. It is for us to recognize. Then it comes our way. Opportunities reach out to us in different ways. Sometimes in a certain incident and sometimes as a calamities. Sometimes they come in form of a person and sometimes they come into as a life-changing idea. It is for us to recognize them and make the most of them. While the common man oversees these opportunities, a man who is born to succeed is always on the lookout for them. Most of the people fail to recognize opportunities as they want to save from themselves the extra effort. If you are determined enough, you may even create opportunities yourself. A person who is forever centered in his work, who is determined to succeed no matter what fate holds for him, is forever on the look for the opportunities, and if he does not have them coming his way, then he creates them. In order to create the opportunity for yourself or to cite one, you need to broaden your mental horizons. People who are too narrow in their thinking and whose goals pertains to the short term after fail to recognize opportunities. If you broaden your mental horizon, then you would find that nature would grant you with an opportunity to fulfill yourself and reach unimaginable heights. Do not be a fatalist. Beasts do not work more than what is required to feed their hunger, nor they required to do so. But the human's life inevitably comes with certain responsibilities, certain desires, and certain ambitions. The difference between man and beast is the man does not work merely to feed his hunger. If hunger was only problem, then undoubtedly it would have been sorted with ease and left to fate. Nature feeds all its animal and birds, then why not us? If feeding ourselves is the sole purpose, that If we lie for, then why brother bother? Just leave it nature and your fatal and follow it takes to its course. But the problem that most of us face is here: we humans do not live in fear or hunger alone. We live to grow, we live to fulfill ourselves, to love and be loved, to evolve forever into higher states of consciousness, to invent, to discover, and to solve the mysteries of the universe and to become one with it. If this is the case, then how can anything ever be left to fate? Man is the maker of his own destiny and has been this way ever since the dawn of civilization. It is we who choose to evolve and have evolved ever since. Whatever lies in store for us is determined by our action. Good begets good and evil begets evil. Without exceptions, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, while explaining to Arjuna the concept of karma, say that the earth is like a very fertile land which supports crops for all sorts. Sow what you wish to sow, you would inevitably reap what has been sown by you. We all know that Christ called his followers heirs of immortal bliss. If the greatest philosopher of the world, who have been worshipped as God, believed that destiny is what man molds with his own hands, then where lies the confusion? History has it that people with courage, people with patience, and people with perseverance have forever chosen their own destiny. It is only the weak and told who talk about fate. Thinking on such lines does not fit you. Man is man till he is struggling with the forces of nature to rise above them. Man is capable of becoming the lewdest of the organism, and he is also capable of being the holiest of all gods. What he chooses to be totally discretion. Consider yourself to be a very skilled archer. Now you want to be stood down a buck. You take your stance and wait patiently for the animal to be motionless. The buck settles down and sinks its neck. You are now ready to fire. As soon as you fire, the buck moves and your arrows purchase the trees instead. Now this is what I call fate. You were very skilled and experienced in your art, and you couldn't have done more. This is the only way that the fate intervenes, and is no way more than this. The best you can do now is not lose patience and find another buck. If you are determined enough, you may get bucked anyway for dinner, gaining as much experience as you can. There is not a single moment in our life that we do not experience, but only those moments which we regard to be important and on which we focus our attention upon actually compose the baggage of our experience. Merely observing things is not enough in order to gain experience. To do so, you should see things in proper light and think in depth about them. You need to reach out the essence of things so that you may understand them and gather experience. If you are visiting a city which is completely new to you, just observing the various buildings, sites and roads is not sufficient. In order to know that city, you need to study its history and its course of development through history and reach its very essence. Similarly, in order to gain an experience and enhance your knowledge and need to feel the very essence of things. Experience helps us to take decisions and molds our lives in the way we desire. You might have noticed that it is not possible for you to maneuver your car through the lenses of an unknown city with certainty and comfort as it is for you. To do so in your own city, the difference is experience. In your own cities, you are aware of where the knocks and corners are, and you are able to speed up when you sight an opening. This can only be done by relying on your experience. Hence, we see the gathering experience help us to speed up the decision and work. This is why it is very important to gain as much experience as you can from the point of view of time management. Be visionary. Most of the people are short-sighted and only work for their present without considering or sparing 1,000 of the future it at all. It is true that we should live in the present, but that does not mean that we should work for the present alone without having a definite design for the future. Before citing any short-term gains, we should consider the loss that we would have to bear in the long run. Therefore, it is advisable not to waste our time on little gratification that relate to the short term and have a definite plan for the future in mind. It is true that it is not possible to control your future, but having a definite plan and working in accordance with it would surely equip you to somewhere near to desired goal. Regarding this, I would like to narrate you to incident from the life of the great administrator of France, Napoleon Bonaparte. While Napoleon was asleep in his tent at midnight, his guards woke him up and told him his commander-in-chief wanted to meet him immediately. When Napoleon asked what the matter was, the guard informed him that the enemy soldiers had attacked from the southern end and the commander was waiting for orders. On hearing this, Napoleon wasn't surprised a bit and didn't even find it necessary to call in his commander-in-chief. He simply told the guard that in a box which was kept in the corner there was a map which was number 34, and told him that he would give it to the commander and inform him in the morning about the result of the battle, and went back to sleep. In the map number 34, it was explained how to tackle the enemy if it attacked from the southern end. The battle was fought according to the map and Napoleon won in the same manner as in which he had planned before. The commander-in-chief, while giving Napoleon the news of victory, asked him how he had formulated such a plan with such precision and at such a short notice. To this, Napoleon replied that the true gods of thoughts and vision always stay with me. This incident tells me that a man should always be prepared for the contingencies which may arise in the future. After reading this incident, you don't feel that we can control a major part of our future if we want to. The fire extinguisher which is for the present in building is not even used 99% for the times. But whenever a fire breaks out, it comes to be rescued. By becoming a visionary, we not only take care of the contingencies which may arise in the future, but we also have a framework in the accordance in which we move ahead. Time Management for Students by Dr. Vijay Agarwal. Chapter number 4. Time and Personality. The relationship between time and the personality that we develop in the course of time is peculiar one. This relationship is peculiar and the most extraordinary one, because where on the one hand time develops our personality, on the other hand a very different personal approach is required in order to manage time. It is time that molds our personality through the various circumstances and challenges that it volleys our way, reacting to them, facing them and finding solution to these various problems that are volleyed our way, helps us to develop a personality. Personality is molded by time. Let us see in detail how this happens. The concept of time in itself demands a certain amount of discipline. For instance, if you say that your school starts at 8, that means that you should have to reach your school by 8. By means, if you do not do so, you are considered to lack discipline. This is also the standard to measure efficiency. If somebody tells you that he would complete the work in hand by the 15th May, then 15th May becomes your standard to judge the efficiency with which he works. There is an interesting incident in which Sir Edward Thomas, who was the Minister of Construction and Transport in the Council of Prime Minister Winston Churchill, was to meet a contractor who was also a very close friend for the purpose of construction of a building. The appointment was fixed, but the constructor arrived 6 minutes late at the meeting. The minister immediately cancelled the contract, stating that if the constructor is late for an appointment which has been fixed beforehand, then how can expect the same person to complete the construction on time? Here, disregard of the time by the constructor cost him the contract. The concept of time is the way to exercise control on your mind. If you tell yourself that by the end of the day you would complete your course book, then this is the time frame that you have to set for yourself, and your mind is now activated to complete the task in the given time. Now, if a friend comes over and if you ask you out for a movie, through you might have want to join him, your mind would remind you of the task at hand, which would make you rethink your decision. In this way, time helps us to exercise control over the wings and fancies of our mind. Time also helps us to feel and recognize the strength that we have within ourselves. If we give ourselves a target which is stipulated by time and then restrain the wisdom of our mind to complete the task in the given time, it arouses in us the feeling of self-respect and help us to recognize our own strength, which adds to our personal growth. Time not only controls our mind but also emotions. In the same manner in which it molds our personality, it also molds our emotions. So we see the various ways in which time plays its role in shaping our personalities. What I firmly believe is that if you desire to cultivate an influential personality, then you should diligently practice the art of time management, as it is time that would shape you and your personality, that would help you to identify your innermost emotion and desire and help you to succeed in whichever field you desire. Wherever we acknowledge the finality of the situation, we acknowledge the power of time. For example, we always reach on time when we have an examination. We always arrive at the station on time when we want to catch the train, and we also arrive on time when we have to appear for an interview. These are but examples of how the human mind works. When it acknowledges finality of the situation, therefore we see that it is for us to make ourselves realize importance of time and the urgency of the situation at hand in order to manage our time judiciously. Get rid of hesitation. When I personally meet the great musician Nausad, he told me that initially he was a very shy man. He went to Bombay to become a musician, and the place in which he stayed was directly opposite to the studio which used to produce films. He told me that to cross the road which separated him from the studio by a few meters, it took him a year and a quarter due to hesitation and his shy nature. He always avoided going to the studio directly, but finally due to circumstances he had to force himself to do so. If he hadn't done so, then he wouldn't have been as famous as we know him today. Due to procrastination, it took him and a quarter year more to become as famous. Shyness of character shouldn't be mistaken for humanity. It is a weakness that we need to overcome at any cost. Only a person who has asserted himself can exercise humility. For a shy person to exercise humility is nothing but hypocrisy. There have been numerous incidents in my life in which I have seen people foregoing opportunities due to hesitation. I have also seen numerous instances in which students do not clarify their queries while the class is being conducted just due to the reason that they are too shy to come up with their questions. As a result, in the end, it is they who always stand to lose. Being hesitant not only kills your own time but also brings down your self-image. This is the reason why I say what you want to say and what you have to say with an open mind and open heart without considering whether the rest would applaud or look at you in spite. If you do not do so, you waste a lot of time thinking whether you should do what you think you should or you shouldn't. In this way, not only do you lose your own time but also the numerous opportunities that comes your way. Motion is life. The water in our pond is forever stagnant as it does not have an outlet. As a result, it always covered with moss and algae, and it is unfit for human consumption. Whereas the water of a river is always in a steady motion, forever moving in a specific direction towards its goal, which is the mighty ocean, and therefore is in purest form. Motion is life. Stagnation is death. Motion is change. Evolution, development into higher states and gathering higher capabilities, embracing what is new and moving on. We human beings are like sharks. Sharks, as we all know, need to constantly move forward so that water would enter their gills and they would be able to breathe. Similarly, we humans need to move forward constantly from one height to the next and from one achievement to the next in order to survive and live in life of fulfillment. Undoubtedly, motion and change are words which naturally brings us discomfort when thought of, but what I believe is that being stagnant is often more painful than it is to get out of our comfort zone and thus embrace change. What I have felt and seen is the most people prefer to be stagnant than the embrace change or to move ahead. I have seen most of the students doing that and becoming complacent. They do not want any change to come in the environment that they are currently in. They do not want to change in their lifestyle and they do not want to change the way in which they work, no matter how flawed the way may be. They become so very used to be very that they have been working over the past many years that any change, no matter how positive or life transforming it may be, seems to be impossible for them to embrace. Similarly to this is the case of homesickness, which is found in many students. I personally know a couple who sent a child to Delhi so that he may graduate as a chartered accountant. But having stayed 2 months in Delhi, he began to feel homesick as it was a new routine and new ways of life that he had to adjust to. He returned home and regrets his decision till this date. As human beings, we are immensely adaptable and we should recognize it as one of our innate abilities. It is through many thousands of years that we have adapted to various circumstances and emerged victorious in the race of survival. The moments of discomfort are but temporary, which mount vanish soon. One of the best short story writer of all time, O. Henry, confessed that the streets of New York brought out the writer in him. Henry Ford, one of the greatest entrepreneur and manufacturer the world has been seen, loaded all his stuffs on a bullock cart and hoped on this family to go to the city where enormous opportunities awaited him. This was the reason that he succeeded in becoming the richest man in the world in his time. Edison came to the city of Detroit when he was just 12 years of age. So we see from our decision and reason that which change and with the adoption of new ways of living and accomplishing one's task come a very new range of opportunities. I do not mean to say that we all should now start packing our bags and head for the big cities. What I actually mean to say is that sightening the opportunities, we should be willing to be able to follow it to the end of the world and makes all the necessary changes in our lifestyle and environment, which would help us to make the most of the opportunities. We already know that this time in nature is forever fluid. It is a nature to flow constantly. It is forever changing. If we want to maintain our pace along with it, we also need to keep moving ahead. Unceasingly, people who do not move ahead and seek to where they used to be are forever losers in the context of time and life in general. Therefore, it is forever in our interest to remain in motions and embrace all changes that are positive. When it comes to be dealing with yourself, be harsh. I have often seen people being overtly gentle while dealing with themselves. They always give themselves the easier way out. We all beings humans are merciful to some extent, but mercy is to be exercised on others, not on ourselves. I have often seen parents spoiling their youngest child to such an extent that it is inevitably makes him a brat. Similarly, if we go easy on ourselves and spoil ourselves beyond the desired limits, that is what we create out of ourselves. By being harsh, I mean not treating yourself with sympathy as far as being following the timetable is concerned. For example, if you have decided that you would get out at 5 in the morning then make sure you do so, no matter how hard it is for you to get up and no matter how much tempted you would be to sleep off again. If you have an appointment with someone at 5 in the evening, you must be there on time, irrespective of whatever it is raining or snowing or whatever you are feeling unwell. If you have to reach a certain place at a certain time, then reach the place on the fixed time. If you have planned on completing a particular task within a time frame, then make sure you do that, no matter how harsh you would have to be on yourself. What needs to be done, and therefore should be no second thoughts about it. Consider this example. You have set aside a few hours of studying in the evening, but your friend drops out. Now, how would you react? Entertaining him would surely disrupt your timetable. The way you feel towards the situation is that you cannot be that harsh to your friend, as he would be offended, and also a part of you want to stop studying and it is looking for a new excuse to close the books. This is where you need to be harsh, not only as far as treating your friends is concerned, but also of yourself. If your friend holds you dear, he would regard your time and thing, then of course he would understand and would want to cooperate with you in your endeavors towards personal development. But if you do not cooperative, then maybe needs to select your friends more carefully. Listen to others and living up their expectations is not a virtue as far as management of time is concerned. Here you need to be more discreet while taking decisions. You need to develop a habit of saying no when it is required to do so, and when it is in the interest of yours following the schedule that you had set for yourself. To you, your time is supreme. No whim, be it yours or be it in the whims of others, should be placed before it. You must have heard about the phrase survival instinct. This is the instinct that we all have thanks to the predatory nature of ancestors. This is the instinct which helps us to struggle till the last breath. Towards survival, it is instinct that refuses to give up, no matter how dominating the situation may be. As far as the execution of your timetable and management of your time is concerned, you need to let this innate instinct which you have in yourself take over. Consider that you are attempting the questionnaire of an examination and you have been able to solve 4 of the questions successfully. When it comes to the 5th question, you are at a complete loss and you do not know what to do. Without giving up at this point, if you try to fix back by answering the questions in the remotest possible way and writing down whatever you can and whatever you do know about the questions proves that your survival instinct has taken over, and now you would struggle to survive and go on attempting the questions till the 9th moment. Who knows, maybe you would be able to score a few marks on the question that you don't know at all just by attempting it. This phenomenon occurs with players all the time. The great Olympian P.T. Usha missed her bronze in the Olympics by 100th of a second. If you are a cricket fantastic, then you might have observed that whether the match is going to be won or lost is forever decided in the last few balls. In the situation when whichever team has ability to fight it or till the last moment wins the match. Thus, this survival instinct can only be developed if we are harsh on ourselves. Treating ourselves harshly develops the inner strength and hence help us to deal with all unfavorable circumstances and emerge victorious. Learn to be harsh on yourselves. Do not try to empathize with your own feeling of self-pity. You would find that if you practice this, the character that you will develop would be a strong one and you would be able to respect your own words, and whenever there is unity and harmony between thoughts and action, miraculous things are achieved. However, Had becomes an engineer But he can unemployed and was always short of money. In search of a job, he went to an industrialist. The industrialist said that he did not need an engineer and there was no vacancy for one. But there was a place vacant for a typist and asked him if he would like to fill in. However, replied that he would like to take the job, but would only be able to join in after 4 days, and asked if man couldn't wait till that long. On listening to his response, the entrepreneur was very influenced by his humanity and told him that he could join after 4 days. However, went back to the place and though he did not know how to type, he learned to do so in 4 days time. And when he was given a paper to type on the first day of his job, he did so without a single mistake. This was Herbert Hoover, the 31st president of the United States. Courage. If I ask you a question that wasn't the basic ingredient required for success, the answer that I would probably get it resources. If the same question is put to me, I could answer it with a simple word, which is courage. A person may not be resources, he may not have a very high intellect, he may not have circumstances working in his favor, but if he has only this one ingredient that I emphasize upon, then he has the capability of creating all the rest. A person with courage builds his own resources, works towards the improvement of his own intelligence, and turns the circumstances of his favor. As far as management of time is concerned, is not a task for the faint-hearted to manage time and to forever complete our task within the stipulated time. We forever need to summon our courage. But more so in the case of unpredictable circumstances, courage is needed to tackle with the pressure of working every day and also to cope with the pressure of examination that most students dread. Courage is required to ward off all causes of anxiety and hence clarify the process of our thinking. With a tense and anxious mind, it is not possible to take the right decision even when struck by catastrophe. Courage would help us to realize that whatever has happened was inevitable and there is no point in brooding over the past. The only way out is thinking towards the future. We cannot always expect the circumstances to be in our favor, but a person who has the ability of summoning his courage whenever the situation demands so has the ability to perform his best even in the worst possible circumstances. It is the ability that creates winner. It is not that winners are always favored by luck or having everything working for them as they would please, but if they are rich in this one ingredient, they always manage to win. To highlight this point, I would like to narrate to you one of the instances from my life. When I was at school, we used to have our boards examination when we were in class 11th. Throughout the years, I was enthusiastic about appearing in the examination, but while I was doing so, I was struck by chickenpox. My spirit was a bit damped and I was a bit depressed about my physical state. I wondered if I would be given a permission to appear for the rest of the board examination. Luckily, I was given permission to sit in a separate room with a person who would write on my behalf. I was filled with hope and still saw light on the end of the dark tunnel. My conditions deteriorated as the days passed. I could barely keep the eyes open for speak up and I constantly felt nausea. In these circumstances, I told myself that it could be wise to attempt only the questions which carry the maximum marks, and I hope that combining the marks of the first and the second paper would help me pass. I adopted this strategy and it saw me through. In this way, I managed to save a year. If I, as a student, was able to fight it off, then there shouldn't be any reason that you shouldn't be able to do. Doing so not only helped me to enhance the level of confidence I had, but also taught me about the wonders that could be achieved only if one didn't give up where he thought there was no hope.